Welcome to Caseback Watches. My name is Tim, and in this episode I'd like to present you 5 watches from the Watches and Wonders Fair in Geneva. 5 pieces that caught my attention, and in this video I will explain to you why. Watches and Wonder in Geneva, the biggest watch event on the planet, and of course many interesting releases, so many that nobody can cover them all, but I have here my 5 picks that caught my attention, and I'd like to give you brief information why I find this interesting, and I'd like to put a bit of context around them. And Caseback Watches is an independent channel, so I can basically tell you whatever I want. I can share my honest opinion without any strategy behind, and that's why I deliver you these 5 watches just in alphabetic order. And let's start with A. Lange Söhne. Yes, A. Lange Söhne presented the Minute Repeater Perpetual, a timepiece that combines 2 of horology's most advanced complications, the Minute Repeater and the Perpetual Calendar. And this watch is powered by the new manually wound movement and features an in-house crafted enamel dial, very special thing with a typical shine. And it comes in a 950 platinum case and is limited to 50 pieces, price upon request, and that makes this Lange an excellent example for large parts of that watch show. Think of haute couture fashion. There you see dresses not for the masses, they are more to deliver an idea that you see later in normal retail products. Their manufacturers show what's possible, and that's exactly what we have here with this Lange. So don't be angry when this watch is not in reach, it shall present an idea to you. And when we think it over, we realize that at a certain time every watch speciality, every watch complication was something extraordinary, something absolutely new for an elite of people, and now they are all over the place. Now they are in reach. For example, think of the first chronograph was something mind-blowing back then, and now it's daily business. And mentioning the chronograph, our next watch is exactly that, a nice example for the classic chronograph that is around since the 40s. Angelus has revived this classic chronograph, and this chrono, as said, is pretty much alive since the 40s, and it appears again and again in form of new watches, and sometimes I think it cannot be improved anymore, and then something like this Telemetra comes along. And this piece here measures 37 millimeters, which is historically accurate. From, let's say, the 40s to the 60s, watches were mostly powered by big Landeron and Venus calibers with 2 pushers. And our Angelus or Angelus has instead a mono pusher movement. Very complicated because of its simplicity. But the key strength here is the dial design. I mean, these elements are not new. The syringe hands are not new. The layout is not new. The telemeter scale is not new. The font is not new. But to combine all this in a handsome form, this is the real challenge. Because when you take all into consideration, every line on the dial, every element on the dial, then you realize this thing is extremely complicated to make. And you have to make sure that everything is in line with all these other elements so that the total impression is really convincing. And then you realize that this dial is as complicated and as delicate as this monopusher movement. And it's also somewhat haute couture because there are only 25 pieces in steel available and 15 more in 18 karat gold. And due to this we have an enormous price tag of 17,900 Swiss francs, which are pretty much 18,000 euros and let's say 19 to 20,000 US dollars in that region. So really expensive, but yeah, for a reason. But luckily there are modern alternatives like Le Bois. I think last year it was that presented their chronograph classique, and it was that there's all there, the classic layout, the design, all these fine elements, a high-end movement, but of course for a fraction of the price. And our next watch comes from Cartier, and that piece cannot be overlooked also because of the design. The Cartier Tank Asym&eacute is a tribute to the original model from 1928. This timepiece features a closed metal dial with 2 small windows for hours and minutes. And this watch is available in yellow gold, rose gold, platinum, you name it, moderate in size. The case here measures 37.6 millimeters and 24.8 and has a slim 6 millimeter profile only. It is powered by the manually wound caliber 9755 MC, featuring a jumping hour and sweeping minute display. And this design is not exclusively by Cartier. You find similar models from other brands. And interestingly, also new creations by smaller brands like Man. They presented, I think, in the last month, a watch pretty similar to this piece with this, yeah, with these discs to display the time. And whilst the Man is relatively moderate in price, this Cartier here comes at 43,000 euros, which are without any problems 45,000 US dollars. By the way, why this design back then in 1928? There must be a reason for that. And you don't find one answer for that, but I highly assume that this was due to protection. I mean, remember these watches from World War I, where you had a grid over a watch dial, because the modern sapphire crystal is an invention of modern times. And back then, watch crystals and watches entirely were pretty fragile, so they put a cage over the top. And this, I think, is the same thing. This is in fact a tool watch. They realized we have to create a metal box with only two little windows for the function, and the rest is just metal to protect the watch against shock, not so much against moisture. I think this is too early in time of watchmaking. So ironically, this enormous pricey watch back then, I think, I'm pretty sure, was a tool watch. And our next watch here is the Frederique Constant Classic Perpetual Calendar Manufacture. Frederique Constant has made its way into the high-end tier and is presenting here something pretty wearable. This is the updated version of the Classic Perpetual Calendar Manufacture, featuring a distinctive salmon-colored dial paired with a 40mm stainless steel case. And interesting to know is that this line of watches was launched by Frederique Constant in 2016, and back then they were the most affordable perpetual calendar on the market, so direct alternative to iconic pieces with enormous price tags, for example by Patek Philippe. So it was the first time that this complication was available, not really for the crowd, but definitely for a wider audience. And the latest version here is powered by the brand's in-house developed FC776 movement, handsome thing as you see here, offering a huge power reserve of 3 days. An affordable perpetual calendar, of course, means in comparison, because the price tag here is 9,995 euros. And so you are over 10,000 US dollars, so a lot of money, but compared to, as said, similar pieces by Patek Philippe, this is relatively cheap. And last watch here is the Rolex Land Dweller. Many people have expected this, I think, because the hype is enormous, and to be honest, it's hard to see the watch. Because it's surrounded by so many opinions. Some people try to bash it to grab some attention, some people praise it over and over again to grab some attention, and it's hard to see the actual thing. So we all have to step a bit back, I think, and try to see it with a clear head, and then you see a lot of substance, I must say, a lot of substance. And my personal bet is that we see a big success in the future with this particular watch here, because there are so many strong elements there. I mean, first, the case with an integrated bracelet that was seen from many brands in the 60s, and it nearly was always a hit. It might be not everybody's taste, but it stands out and is very comfortable and organic. I mean, this 40mm watch here is only 9.7mm high. Mainly this design is responsible for huge successes like the Tissot PRX that started with a single watch and now it's an entire lineup. Or take many Seikos from the 90s and early 2000s, same thing. Or take the early icons like from Audemars Piguet, like the Royal Oak. They all featured this design, and so I think it's not exaggerated to say that this design is always a bit of a hit. Especially when it's combined with strong parts like the honeycomb dial here, which just looks marvelous. And it goes on, because inside we find the new caliber 7135 operating not at that regular beat rate of 28,800, which is pretty much the industry standard. No, this thing operates at 36,000, which makes it a high frequency movement. And we might think now about, we think of classic and iconic calibers like El Primero made by Zenith, put in their El Primero chronographs and later then in the Daytona and the Rolex Daytona. And these movements, due to their high beat rate, were super precise but a bit fragile. And here with the new Rolex calibers, they say it's precise, it's fast, and it's fairly robust. And so I think we have a decent package of design than elements like the honeycomb dial and the technology inside. And you may have noticed that there is not the one Land Dweller. There are several models out there. They come in 36 and 40 millimeter size, so for gents and ladies. And the price tags start at 15,000 euros, which are, what is it, 17,000 US dollars, which is brutal. But as explained, I think this watch brings everything with it to be a huge success for Rolex. And an interesting question now is, can this model take away attention from other Rolex models? And my answer is definitely, because there is not an infinite amount of watch buyers. And so if you're interested in a watch model from Rolex that is not so much on the radar, maybe now comes your time when you can buy it for a, let's say, reasonable and realistic price, because everything is circling around the new Land Dweller. Okay, these were my 5 picks, and now I'm of course very curious. What do you think about the Watches and Wonders fair? Do you see this haute couture aspect, or do you see it just as a bit of entertainment? Do you see strong pieces there, or do you see a lot of hype? I'm very curious to read from you in the comment section about that topic, really. And if you want to purchase something that doesn't break the bank, that doesn't go for 15,000 euros, then please visit caseback.watches.com, where I sell leather goods at reasonable prices, so without the huge markup famous brands have. And I'm sure when you are in need of a strap or a wallet or a belt or something else, you will find it there. Alright, and that's it for this video. Thank you very much for your attention, and until next time.